So I want to bring something into the light today that I hope is important and encouraging for all of us to be reminded of. In North America, and in particularly actually in the States right now, there is a significant movement inside the evangelical wing of the church towards what's called dominionism. It's a form of Christian imperialism. In other words, if we only voted in the right president or had the right Supreme Court judges, or we had the right people in power in Congress and Senate, then we could Christianize the nation. We could make God's words and God's laws a foundational part of American society again. And in some ways that overlaps a little bit into Canadian culture, but the noise that's coming out of the American church right now is pretty significant. And I wanted to just speak to it for a moment because I'm not convinced that this is a helpful project. I was reading in John 18 where Jesus is standing before Pilate and he has this brilliant exchange with him. And Pilate says to Jesus, "So you're a king, are you?" And Jesus says, "Well, did you figure that out or did somebody else tell you?" And Pilate pushes back and says, "Well, I don't know. All your Jewish people, all the Jewish leaders seem to think you are, and that's why you're in trouble." To which Jesus replies, "My kingdom is not of this world. If it was, my servants would fight to stop this injustice." Now that little phrase, "my kingdom is not of this world," has always puzzled me a bit, because in some ways it seems to contradict much of what else is going on in the Gospels, because Jesus says frequently, "The kingdom of God is amongst you, the kingdom of God is upon you, the kingdom of God is within you." And he teaches all about the kingdom, and yet he says here, "My kingdom is actually not of this world." So what's he saying here? Well, I think what he's saying is, he's not necessarily talking about geography, although that may be a part of what he's talking about. I think what he's predominantly talking about here is the kind of kingdom that he has. I think at this point he's standing in the inner sanctum of power as far as Roman power goes in that area. He's in Pilate's inner court. So he's surrounded by politics, he's surrounded by the military, he's looking around and he could probably see swords and he could see spears and guards and, political advisors. And I think what Jesus does is he looks at them and he says, "My kingdom is not of this world." It's like he's saying, my kingdom is not built because it's the biggest army, or because I've won the election, or because I am the person in the seat of power right now. It's not about politics, it's not about the military, it's not about money, it's not about economics. Jesus is saying, my kingdom does not work the way human kingdoms work. So, when we translate that now into our lives and our circumstances, I think when we look around and we see people wanting to vote in the right Christian leaders for this position or that position so that we can Christianize the city or Christianize the province or Christianize the nation, I don't think it's necessarily bad at all to have a Christian mayor or Christians who are judges in court, or Christian politicians certainly, or even a Christian prime minister or president. That's fine. But I think to try and dress it up as a project of the kingdom of God, that somehow we can implement the kingdom through political power, through positions of human authority, I think is a totally false project. In fact, I think Jesus teaches against that, because he actually looked around that room and he said, "My kingdom does not belong here. It is not of this world." It's interesting, when Jesus does teach about the kingdom, the analogy that he uses the most, the motif that he keeps bringing up, is agriculture. He talks about fields and seeds and things growing. He talks about farmers and sheep that get lost and loaves of bread that are baked and things that are planted that grow and vineyards. The kingdom of God is different from the kingdom of this world. And right now there is a lot of noise, even within the church, to try and wrestle positions and people in the corridors of power so that we can just Christianize the place. And it's a form of Christian imperialism which I think is actually counterproductive to the values of the kingdom of God. Jesus in the Sermon on the Mount does not lay down a political manifesto. He lays out a vision of what it looks like when his people are living according to the Spirit. And it's totally different than the world that Pilate lived in. And I think it's pretty different than the world that a lot of Christians actually might live in right now, because we've become so hypnotized and so deafened by the noise of political power that I think in some ways we've lost our way. And the Sermon on the Mount teaches us once again how to find our way. It calls us back into alignment with the heart and the kingdom of God, as I believe it has been truly revealed to us. So hopefully that's just a reminder that we remember our calling and our posture, and we can pray, Lord, thy kingdom come and thy will be done. Okay, till next time, peace.